They thought it was over. Then a child did the unthinkable at 15,000 feet. The morning had started like any other for Captain Ryan Mitchell. At 38, he had logged over 15,000 flight hours, guiding passengers safely across countless miles of sky, with the steady confidence that came from years of experience. His white uniform shirt was pressed to perfection. His blue tie knotted with military precision, and the 4 golden stripes on his shoulders spoke of a career built on unwavering competence and calm professionalism. Flight 447 from Denver to Chicago was supposed to be routine. 147 passengers settling in for a smooth 2-hour journey, most of them already absorbed in books, tablets, or the gentle rhythm of morning conversations. Ryan had completed his pre-flight checks with his usual thoroughness, exchanged pleasant words with his crew, and guided the aircraft into the peaceful blue of the early sky. But now, 15,000 feet above the Kansas plains, everything had changed. The storm had appeared with the sudden fury that prairie weather was famous for, transforming the serene morning into a chaos of lightning, wind, and darkness. The aircraft shuddered and bucked like a wild horse as Ryan fought to maintain control, his hands steady on the controls, despite the growing knot of concern in his chest. Warning lights blinked across the instrument panel like an urgent Christmas display. The hydraulic systems were failing. The electrical backup was compromised. One by one, the systems that kept the aircraft stable and controllable were shutting down, leaving Ryan with fewer and fewer options. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ryan announced over the intercom, keeping his voice calm and reassuring despite the circumstances. "We're experiencing some turbulence due to weather in the area. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Our flight crew will keep you updated." But privately, Ryan knew they were facing something far more serious than turbulence. The aircraft was becoming increasingly difficult to control, and standard procedures weren't working. His training had prepared him for many emergencies. But this combination of system failures in severe weather was pushing beyond the boundaries of everything he'd learned. That's when he heard the small voice behind him. "Excuse me, Captain Ryan." Ryan turned in his seat to see a little girl, perhaps 7 years old, standing in the cockpit doorway. She had blonde hair that caught the glow of the instrument lights, and she wore a soft pink hoodie that made her look like she belonged in a playground, rather than a commercial airliner's cockpit. Her blue eyes held a calmness that seemed remarkable given the circumstances. "Sweetheart, you need to return to your seat," Ryan said gently, even as he continued working the controls. "It's not safe for passengers to be up here right now." "My name is Lily," she said, not moving from the doorway. "Lily Catherine Brooks. And I think you need some help." Despite everything happening around him, Ryan found himself pausing. There was something in the child's voice, a quiet certainty that seemed oddly comforting in the midst of the crisis. "Lily Catherine Brooks," Ryan repeated, managing a small smile, even as another warning alarm sounded. "That's a beautiful name. But I really do need you to go back to your seat, so the flight attendants can keep you safe." Lily took a step closer, her small hands clasped in front of her. "My grandpa was a pilot," she said simply. "He taught me things before he went to heaven last month." Ryan's hand stilled on the controls for just a moment. "Your grandfather was a pilot." "Captain Henry Brooks," Lily said with obvious pride. "He flew planes for 40 years. Big ones like this and little ones too. He used to let me sit in his study while he told stories about flying, as if summoned by their conversation." Another violent gust shook the aircraft, and Ryan had to grip the controls tighter to maintain any semblance of stability. The storm outside seemed to be growing stronger, and his options were running out quickly. "Lily," Ryan said, his voice tight with concentration, "I really need you to. Grandpa said that sometimes when all the machines stop working, you have to remember that flying is really just about understanding the wind." Lily interrupted gently. "He said planes want to fly. You just have to listen to what they're trying to tell you." Ryan found himself looking at this small girl with new attention. "What else did your grandfather tell you?" Lily moved closer to the instrument panel, her eyes scanning the blinking lights with a seriousness that seemed far beyond her years. He said that when everything goes wrong at the same time, it usually means you're fighting against something instead of working with it. Another violent shake of the aircraft punctuated her words, but somehow, in the midst of the chaos, Ryan found himself really listening to what this child was saying. Grandpa told me that storms have patterns. Lily continued, her small voice clear and confident. He said they push and pull, but if you can feel the rhythm, you can dance with them instead of fighting them. Ryan looked out at the lightning, filled darkness surrounding them, then back at the array of failing instruments. Everything he'd been trained to do involved fighting against the storm, forcing the aircraft to go where he wanted it to go. But what if this little girl was right? What if there was another way? Lily, Ryan said slowly, what would your grandfather do right now? Lily studied the instrument panel for a moment, then looked directly into Ryan's eyes. He would stop trying to make the plane go where he wanted it to go. He would ask the plane where it wanted to go, and then help it get there safely. The simple wisdom of her words hit Ryan like a revelation. He'd been fighting the storm, fighting the failing systems, fighting everything that was happening to them. But what if he stopped fighting and started listening? Ryan took a deep breath and loosened his death grip on the controls. Instead of forcing the aircraft through the turbulence, he began to feel for the natural movements of the air around them. Instead of fighting against the wind shears, he started to work with them, letting the aircraft move more naturally through the storm's patterns. That's it, Lily said softly, watching Ryan's technique change. Grandpa said planes are like birds. They know how to fly. They just need a pilot who knows how to let them. Slowly, remarkably, the aircraft began to respond more smoothly. The violent shaking diminished as Ryan worked with the storm instead of against it. The warning alarms continued, but the plane itself felt more stable, more controlled. You're doing it, Captain Ryan? Lily said with quiet satisfaction. You're dancing with the storm. For the next 20 minutes, Ryan flew the aircraft using principles he'd never learned in any manual or training program. Guided by the wisdom of a 7-year-old girl, channeling her grandfather's 40 years of experience, he navigated through the storm with a gentleness that seemed impossible given their circumstances. When they finally broke through the storm clouds into clear sky, the instrument panel still showed multiple system failures. But the aircraft was flying smoothly and steadily toward their destination. Ryan had never felt more grateful for the miracle of flight, or more humbled by the unexpected teacher who had helped him rediscover it. How did you know to do that, Lily? Ryan asked as they began their approach to Chicago. Lily smiled, an expression of pure innocence mixed with ancient wisdom. Grandpa visits me sometimes in my dreams. Last night, he told me that I might meet a pilot who had forgotten how to listen to his airplane. He said I should remind you that flying is about trust, not control. Ryan felt tears gathering in his eyes as he guided the aircraft toward a safe landing. Your grandfather sounds like he was a very wise man. He was, Lily said simply. But he always said that children make the best pilots, because we haven't learned yet that some things are supposed to be impossible. When Flight 447 touched down safely at Chicago O'Hare, the passengers applauded, unaware of how close they had come to disaster, or how their safety had been ensured by the wisdom of a 7-year-old girl and the loving memory of her grandfather. As they taxied to the gate, Ryan turned to Lily, who was preparing to return to her seat. Lily Catherine Brooks, you saved everyone on this airplane today. Lily shook her head with the matter-of-fact honesty that only children possess. I didn't save anyone, Captain Ryan. I just helped you remember something you already knew. Grandpa says that's what the best teachers do. Years later, Ryan would tell the story of Flight 447 to other pilots, emphasizing not the technical aspects of the emergency, but the profound lesson he'd learned from an unexpected instructor. He'd learned that sometimes the most important guidance comes not from manuals or instruments, but from the innocent wisdom of a child who hasn't yet learned that miracles are impossible. And whenever young pilots asked him for advice about handling emergencies, Ryan would smile and tell them what Lily had taught him, that sometimes the best way to take control is to let go, and that the most important instrument in any cockpit is an open heart willing to listen to wisdom, no matter how small the voice that carries it. In his desk drawer, Ryan kept a letter from Lily's mother, sent months after their flight, including a photo of Lily standing next to a small model airplane her grandfather had built for her. On the back, in a child's careful handwriting, were the words that had changed everything. Planes want to fly. You just have to listen. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected teachers, carrying the wisdom of generations in voices too young to doubt the impossible.